Come join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. But first, a huge thank you to all of our executive co-producers who subscribed to our Prime membership and fueled our growth. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our episodes on Apple or Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. My fantastic co-host, Mark Mosher. I've been calling you illustrious lately because I have the app of insincere things to say to coworkers.
Yep.
And
highly effective too.
Yes. And so, but let's get right into it. We're really honored today to have Brian Scudamore, the CEO and founder of 1-800-JUNK, plus several other brands. Phenomenal entrepreneur, one of the best in terms of building a great culture. Brian, welcome, sir.
Awesome, David. Thank you for having me. And I can tell Mark, we're going to have a lot of fun here. You guys, I like the way you roll.
Excellent.
It's going to be good.
We love to hear that. So,
and I feel like I'm at home. This is all about branding. And here's a guy that believes that you always wear the brand. And so
that's exactly right. So let's I would like to start from the right from the top, and with you, it's not what you're doing today because we all know about it. It's everywhere. You've been in Forbes magazine. You're a published author. Everybody knows you, right? What we're curious is, tell us what inspired you to do it. That one day back in, what was it?
1989.
1989.
Yeah.
So
was there an event and or person? Was there something that happened that kind of pushed you? Because we always find that to be everybody has a springboard, and it's always interesting to hear what that is.
Yeah. So my aha moment, my
Epiphany.
time when I started, my day was I was in a McDonald's drive-thru. Now, a pretty incredible brand. I don't necessarily love the food. I try to eat healthier these days, but I love that brand and Ray Kroc's story. And so ironically, I was in a McDonald's drive-thru contemplating what my future was going to be for college. All my friends were going to college. I never finished high school, so I was actually one course short of graduation. And I figured I was going to talk my way into college, and I then had to find out how to pay for it. So I'm in this McDonald's drive-thru, and in front of me is a beat-up old pickup truck, a Ford F-150 with plywood sides built up on the box. And I looked at that truck, and I was like, wow, there's an idea. It said Mark's Hauling on the side. And I thought, I'm going to go buy my own truck, and that's how I'm going to pay for college. And a week later, I spent $700 on my own Ford pickup, built plywood sides, and thought I'm going to drive down alleys and laneways and introduce myself and start hauling junk. My company name, the first brand, was called the Rubbish Boys.
Yeah, I love that.
Sounds like a cool boy band. Sounds like a cool boy band.
Boys, and you made it plural. Like you were like, I am by myself. I'm 18, but I'm going to call myself the Rubbish Boys. So that way they feel like I have an employee.
Yeah. And, I had a vision for something bigger. This wasn't just going to be me. And so something that's always been near and dear to my heart of why I've gotten into business is I find it fun. I used to work at my grandparents' Army surplus store in San Francisco. It was a small little shop in a dodgy area of town, but I'd go there every Christmas holiday, every summer vacation, and I'd work in their store. And I saw how much fun Grandma and Grandpa had with customers, with their employees. And so I was always sort of drawn to business and wanting to play that game. Yeah. So the Rubbish Boys was a way to go, okay, here's my team. I got them.
Yes. So many people get caught up in work and like, oh, I've got to go to work. And it's that. And I'm like, if you do it right, it's not, it's not fun. It's not something you're going to love all the time. There's good days and bad days, but it takes on, it allows us to become something bigger than ourselves. Right? Mm-hmm. Like it allows us to become part of something that can grow and become eternal almost.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a comment earlier, like everybody knows me. I don't think that's true, but flattering. Thank you. I want everybody to know my companies. 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We've got Wow One Day Painting. We've got Shack Shine. And why that's important to me is I planted the seed of an idea that brought in franchise owners that helped us build something bigger and better together. It doesn't have to be my idea. It doesn't have to be my leadership. It doesn't have to be anything. I'm building it with a team of great people, and we're having a blast. So I want people to know the brands. I want people, I drive a Toyota Tacoma pickup truck, a little truck, but it's branded. Like you can imagine with all the brands on it all over, it looks like a NASCAR. That's what I want people to know, because I believe in our service and I believe in growing entrepreneurs.
That's fantastic. I read one of your articles and you talked about the painted picture process. Is that kind of how, what is that? Can you explain that?
For brands to rely just on passwords or weak, old-fashioned multi-factor authentication systems. It's your brand and we want you to protect it. Today, we're excited to be sponsored by a next-generation authentication platform, Beyond Identity. Did you know 80% of breaches are the result of stolen credentials? Why does your organization still rely on passwords as part of your authentication process? Beyond Identity enforces continuous risk-based authentication, a fundamental tenet of a zero-trust security program. Check the link in our show notes and go to beyondidentity.com/podcast to get a free demo. That's beyondidentity.com/podcast to get a free demo. Beyondidentity.com/podcast for a free demo today. Or simply click the link in our show notes below. And now the show.
One of your articles, and you talked about the painted picture process. Is that kind of how, what is that? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So in 1994, I'll start with a story just to lead up to this.
Absolutely.
But 1994, 5 years into the business, I fired my entire company. I had $500,000 in revenue as the Rubbish Boys. I had 11 employees, and they say one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. I think I had 9 bad apples.
Oh,
wow.
It's not that they were bad people. They were people that just didn't fit my happy professional model of what I wanted to build.
Not the right people in the right seat.
Yeah. And so I just thought the only thing I could do is fire everybody. So I sat everybody down at a morning meeting and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I let you down, didn't give you the love and support you needed. I wasn't a great leader and I take ownership, but I've got to start again. So I fired my entire company of 11 people, went from 5 trucks down to just the one I could drive myself, and off I went to rebuild the business.
Wow.
So I started to rebuild and I started to have fun and I started to see that, okay, bringing in the right people and treating them right was a secret sauce of ours. Probably again from my grandma and grandpa, and learned how much they cared for people. But I got to then a point where I hit $1 million in revenue with this new way of doing things. And I started to feel challenged with where I was going and what the potential was. I joined an organization called EO, the Entrepreneur Organization, and I was surrounded with bigger, better entrepreneurs. And I thought, I'm not feeling so great about my little tiny $1 million junk removal business. So I went to my parents' summer cottage. They had this little shack on the water, and it was a place of inspiration for me. I sat on the dock. 8 years into the business, we were doing $1 million in revenue. Sat on the dock, pulled out a sheet of paper, and I said, Brian, enough of this doom loop garbage. Enough thinking, I can't do this. I don't have a college education. I don't have the money. Maybe not a good idea. And I started to say, I'm going to envision what the future could look like if I was optimistic. So I took out this sheet and I started writing, we will be in the top 30 metros in North America by the end of 2003, 5 years out. We would be on the Oprah Winfrey show. We'd be the FedEx to junk removal, clean, shiny trucks, friendly uniform drivers. And I started to list it all out with language that saw it happening. Not, I hope to be, I'm going to try to be, but we will be in the top 30 metros. And then, as if by magic, 5 years into the future, it all happened. About 96% of it, including Oprah, including the top 30 metros. But the last thing I'll say, so we can go back to conversation, the most interesting part of me painting that picture was taking that sheet, sharing it with people around me, and it did 2 things. It separated some of my employees into the camp of, well, you're smoking hope dope here, dude. Like, there's no way this is going to happen. To the other half who said, wow, 30 cities, we're only in 1 right now. Oprah, look at this. Wow, I want to be a part of that. They didn't know how to get there, but they knew they wanted to be a part, and the painted picture was born. And it's something we use.
That's what brands are all about. I mean, that's what brands are all about. That's what, I mean, that's that vision and that process. You actually have like that. That's like you created a process for actually developing vision, and that's so remarkable.
You know, it's interesting.
And I'm happy to go ahead, Mark.
Now you touched on one of the points that David and I, excuse me, that we really share is kind of a fundamental belief, and that is, if you bring on the right people and you put them in the right seat and have them doing the task that they can do and perform to, that it creates a culture that really can grow business just from the culture. And I think you kind of touched on that when you said you had to hit reset and start all over because you didn't have the right people in the right seat. So I think that's really interesting.
Right.
It rings true to both David and I very much.
Well, yeah, because what I didn't hear was, oh, they didn't have the right technical skills, right? Or they didn't have the right education. None of that mattered. It was the wrong culture.
It was the wrong cultural fit.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, so a tool we use, and it's kind of fun. It got branded as the beer and barbecue test. So if we were interviewing any one of you, let's just pick on David right now. And I said, hey, you know, you're in our office or in these Zoom days, we're doing an interview. The question I would ask myself as the interviewer is, would I want to have a beer with you? Right. You know, maybe a Mountain Dew like you're drinking, but hey, would I want to have a beer with you? Do I find you interested? Do we have a shared passion? I mean, we both love Paris, I can tell. What do we have in common? How are we going to change the world together? Would we have a beer or a coffee together? The barbecue test is then, you know, how would you fit at our company picnic, at our company barbecue? If you showed up and we're all having barbecue and a bunch of beers and hanging out, do you fit in? Now, that doesn't mean we need all extroverts or all introverts. It's just got to be a good party that fits. Lots of diversity, diverse opinions. And that's how we do our interviewing. So it becomes less of the formalities of all the technical skills. Now, if we're hiring a CFO, we're going to take KPMG, our auditors, and say, interview the heck out of this person and make sure they got the actual teeth to do this.
Right.
But we're hiring on attitude, and we're growing this thing based on cultural fit. As Mark, you say, you know, you can find the right people, and that builds businesses. You guys are about building brands. That's what this podcast is about. A brand is people. It's people coming to life through a company.
Absolutely. Now, and obviously you're doing it and it works. So that just shows our listeners that, yes, what we've been talking about on every podcast, that culture really is the key.
Absolutely.
So you have some quotes or some statements that you kind of take to heart. And I know that you have a couple like you're a very employee centered organization. Can you just explain to us kind of some of those quotes? I've heard that when you walk into your main building there, you have the quotes on the wall and you have things there, maybe like your first truck or something like that. Can you explain that?
Yeah, people say it's almost like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
That's what I've heard.
And it's not a bad thing though, right?
That's not a bad thing. Who doesn't love chocolate?
Decals, quotes everywhere, and people can see our stories come to life. You know, pictures tell stories. So why not get out there and talk about our values, passion, integrity, professionalism, and empathy? Why not talk about the story of the first truck and how it started? Why not talk about the story about how we got the 1-800-GOT-JUNK phone number from the Department of Transportation in Idaho? These are all stories on our walls. Quotes. One of my favorites is, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." Walt Disney. I love when we come up with impossible seeming ideas and then we make them happen. You know, look at the Eiffel Tower behind you, Gustav Eiffel. I mean, come on, that was an idea that everybody told him it couldn't be done.
Couldn't happen. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
It was no longer impossible because he made it possible in the 1800s. It's what I love about business and building things together is you bring in. So our parent company is called Optery Brands, ordinary to exceptional. We take ordinary people, ordinary ideas, and we just fire them up and we create awesomeness together. And the way we're doing that is just challenging ourselves to go out and do the impossible. And It makes life great. I mean, even during a pandemic, even as we're, I know we're not necessarily on lockdowns anymore, thankfully, but we're all still working from home and so on. There are so many opportunities during this pandemic. In fact, I can't even believe the opportunities out there to start businesses right now are hotter than ever. There are, you look at challenges and you go, wow, there's an opportunity there for someone to make money, to grow a business, for someone to start a franchise with us, whatever it might be. And pandemics, it's lent itself to some future awesomeness.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I just have a quick question. You were born in San Francisco, right? And
I
went to school originally where? Like
that's a good one.
Because I saw you went to so many different schools. I just figured I was getting confused. I figured I'd just ask you rather than write it out.
Yeah, no, I get confused. So the shortest way to explain it is I've gone to 14 schools from kindergarten to college, and the only one I have a diploma from is kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
I'm not trying to be funny. It's actually true. I never graduated from high school, talked my way into college. For me, I am a very ADD entrepreneur. I think many of us are.
Yep.
I learn by asking questions, by talking with people. I learn by doing. I don't learn in the classroom. And so part of it was my dad as a liver transplant surgeon moving around. We lived in England for a while. We spent some time in Sweden. But most of it was just my sheer sense of, I don't know how to focus. So yeah, where did I end up going to school? I mean, I was in Montreal, which I moved to on my own to try and get away and learn from another part of Canada, but I never graduated.
How did you go from San Francisco to Canada? Usually people...
I was born in San Francisco. Born in San Francisco. My mother remarried, met my father, and my father adopted me, and we ended up moving to Canada where he was from. And he's a liver transplant surgeon, and this was home. And so
very cool.
I'm a Canadian. I love Canada, but most of my family is in the United States. Most of my business is in the United States. So I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of schools, I know you're part of doing some work with MIT. Is that right, with the birthing of giants?
Yeah, so I started a program, I think 18 years ago, started in a program called Birthing the Giants. And it was affiliated with MIT, Inc. magazine, and the Entrepreneur Organization. You had to apply to get in. There were 60 of us, high growth entrepreneurs. And we got together for a 3-year program, and it was just learning from other entrepreneurs and different speakers we'd bring in. And we decided, 4 of us, myself included, to extend the program and keep it going forever. Literally, we've got no expiration date on this. I mean, we'll expire before the program does, but it's really getting out there and going, we are going to continue learning. And we've been going every year, except during the pandemic. We did it online, but we've gone every year, and it's been absolutely unbelievable. It's our peer network. And watching those same 60 plus entrepreneurs having gone through great growth in life and in business. We've all had hurdles and speed bumps on the way, but total awesomeness in terms of what we've learned from each other.
That's so cool. Great. Now you met somebody from Kinko's there, I think, that made an impression on you as well.
Yeah, Paul Orfella.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to talk about ADD. I don't know if any of you have met Paul, but man, he is as ADD. I mean, he's way worse than I. Like he would have been off the Zoom right now. It's like, it's hard to stay focused. Super great, funny guy. But an impression he made on me is I remember asking Paul, I said, or someone actually in the class asked, what is success to you?
Yep. That's what
And here was a guy that just sold out to FedEx for a ton of money.
Yeah.
He never disclosed how much money because I think it was so much. And, you'd think by all standards, he's got his private jet. He must be incredibly happy and successful. And he said, so someone said, what is success to you? And Paul said, that's easy. If my kids want to spend time with me when they're grown-ups, that's success. Yeah. And I love that. I've got 3 young kids.
Yeah,
I've got 3 young kids. I mean, they want to hang out with me right now. Yeah. But, that's because the youngest one's 8 years old. I mean, he has no choice. But when they're grown up, will they spend time with me?
That's fantastic.
So
I absolutely love that as a father. That is the pure definition of success.
You've got a really good question, and it's really, I guess it's a technique as well, and it's something that actually David and I use working with clients and with each other to keep each other accountable. And that's the if money was no object, what would you do? But applying that to your career, and that's a unique application of that. Can you help envision that? How does that work? I think our listeners will get a lot out of that.
I just always want to know what makes people tick.
Yeah.
I mean, if truly money was no object, if you had enough to just eat, sleep, do the things that were, to survive, and have some fun on the side, if money were no object, what would you really do? Where would you spend your time? I took my kids, my wife and I took the 3 kids to India to help build a school with a charity organization. We ended up going to Kenya, did the same thing. I've never asked my kids what they want to be when they grow up, because I just want them to be happy and feel like they're contributing in the world. So it's trying to expose them to different opportunities. And so when I think of, what would you do if money didn't matter? I think too many people make decisions going, I want this type of car, I want this type of house. If you think of what really matters to you and how you can be the best in the world at that, the money will come, guaranteed. I mean, when I stopped caring about money, which was an awful long time ago, it was like, what do you do as it keeps on coming? Now we put our money back into the growth of the business because we want to see entrepreneurs grow along with us. But I think that people need to figure out how to make meaning more than making money.
That's fantastic. So one of the challenges, one of the things that they told you can't do was franchise your organization, right? So how did you figure out how to do it?
Yeah, I figured out by doing. I figured out by making a lot of mistakes. I went to, a dozen-ish mentors or people that I met that I wanted some coaching and help and feedback from. And I brought a notebook and I said, okay, I want a franchise, and how am I going to do this? And what does it look like? And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, but at the time, everybody said, junk removal, that can't be franchised. Who's going to, why wouldn't you just get out with your own pickup truck and start your own business? Why would somebody join you? And what was interesting is I took all the no's from all these experts. One of them was a senior partner in McDonald's. And I took all these smart people and I said, okay, so it can't be franchised. Why not? What would make it franchisable? What's missing? What don't you like about it? And I wrote down all the answers, and I went away and I retooled my model. And I came back to a couple of them and said, what do you think now? And they were like, wow, you might be able to do this. And, the rest is history. So I love the concept of when people give you a no, find out what's behind that no. What can you learn? When we go pitch the press, I remember back in the days, we'd call some of the big, CNNs and Wall Street journals, and they'd say, I don't think this is a great story you're pitching. What's missing? And they would give us the answers as a journalist that wouldn't necessarily sway them and get them on side at that time, but it would be information we could arm ourselves with when we called Oprah or when we called, USA Today. And it works incredibly well. How do you learn? How do you make mistakes? So you ask about franchising and how we did it. Lots and lots and lots of failures. And so what's interesting is I wrote a book all about failure called WTF,
right,
which stands for Willing to Fail.
Right, Willing to Fail.
And the title came after, thank you. The title came after we wrote the book. My co-author, Roy Williams, who's the Wizard of Ads, he does all our radio creative. He and I closed off the manuscript, and he just said to me, as a big branding guy that he is, he said, let the title come from the book. Wait till the book is done, the title will come. And we looked at the book and went, this is all about failure after failure after
you
failure.
wrote a book about failure.
I did, but each failure was a gift that got us to the next stage in the business. And so it just became, the title was WTF, Willing to Fail. I'm willing to make mistakes because I know that's where the great learning comes. And in franchising, an incredibly difficult game to play, made an awful lot of mistakes, some that nearly killed the company, but here we are today.
That's interesting that your outlook on failure as one of an opportunity for growth. That it seems like, yeah, if I fail, that's fine, but what do I learn from it? How do I move ahead? How do I leverage that failure to move the needle forward? And I think that's a differentiator in a lot of people, is that attitude or that outlook. So it's really cool that you've got that. I want to ask you on the franchise part. So I heard a rumor. Is it true you had like a $29 gimmick that you use with the franchisees about marketing? Can you talk about that? Is that true? Is that?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's exactly $29. It was a $3 blue wig, a $26 bowling shirt that had 1-800-GOT-JUNK on the front and the back. And what I was trying to accomplish was, our franchise partners were giving us a bit of grief in saying that we needed to do TV and radio and spend a bunch of money on some of the big plays to really grow the business. I said, A, we don't have the money, and B, I think we can do it in a more guerrilla marketing type way. So I said to this group of franchise partners, we had a franchise advisory council. I think there were 6 of them. And I said, so where would be the city that would be the hardest to stand out in and get attention? And people said New York City. They said Vegas. I go, Vegas, we're going to Vegas. And so we bought everyone $29 sort of outfit, right? The bowling shirt and the blue wig.
Yep.
We went to Vegas and we started going into bars and casinos and the whole bit. And we were giving out 1-800-GOT-JUNK tattoos and little spray bottles of water and putting them on people. We looked like a cheesy rock band, and people were just like, who are these guys? And people were coming up to us and talking to us. They're like, are you guys on a bachelor party? What's going on? Who are you? And we owned Vegas that night. I mean, people were just like talking to us, and they were like, we see you everywhere. And so I tried to show people that a city that's so difficult to stand out in, $29 times, 6 people plus, maybe a little airfare and some alcohol. But it was a good experiment to show that, you know what, you can stand out if only you think differently and figure out how to do that.
And that is a brilliant mind.
I know. You're like Brian, you're like the godfather of branding. I love it. It's so
but
cool.
it's getting out of your comfort zone, and it's saying, what could I do that's a little bit crazy here where we might just have fun? Getting on the Oprah Winfrey show was very much guerrilla marketing for us. We constantly emailed and phoned into Harpo Studios for 14 months. We weren't stalking.
Back when it was in Chicago? Back when it was in Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it was just phone call after email till finally they gave us a call and said, let's do something. Get out to Los Angeles. They were doing a hoarding cleanup for a woman whose mother was a hoarder. And we were asked to clean it up and do our magic. And then Oprah really loved the clip and said, Brian, you got to come out onto the show. And I got to sit on stage, look at Oprah.
How cool is that?
Name.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty fun.
That is really cool. So one thing the listeners need to understand is, because for some of them that might be just hearing for the first time about 1-800-JUNK, right? 1-800-GOT-JUNK. But 2 things. One, I want to talk about some of your other brands, but it didn't happen overnight. Like I was looking in like 89, you had 1 truck. By like 92, you had 2 trucks. And like in 93, you had 3 trucks. That's like 3-4 years later, and you've grown to 3 trucks. Like this is not,
It wasn't an overnight success.
No, I think
funny how those take so long to happen.
Some people think of so startups true. And they think of like Elizabeth Holmes and the huge some of the massive venture capitalists that she obtained, and she became a billionaire before 30, and like that's not reality. It's not.
No.
So like isn't there the Steve Jobs quote that you favor? Something. What is the quote again, Brian?
I think Mark just said it. These overnight success stories sure take a long time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, Steve Jobs.
I mean, and they do. You look at this. So to give you the numbers on my business in sort of the simplest form, it took us 8 years to get to $1 million in revenue, and we'll do $1 million today. Right. I mean, so like in one day, we'll do over $1 million.
Wow.
Just
That's
showing
so
you
cool.
that these things kind of the hockey stick, very much a Canadian analogy,
Well, there
but
you go.
it's, you know,
That's
Now, you got-
phenomenal.
and so, but I think that's where, you know, you talk about the venture capital, raise money, go out in a big way and become a billionaire. I mean, a lot of those blow up as well, right? They, as quickly as they grow, they fall, or they're not sustainable long term, and a lot of it can be hype. Now, there's lots of great brands that have also done it and been very lucky, whether it's an Instagram or so on. But it is very much iterating as you go and learning. And I do believe slow and steady wins the race. And so it takes time. You know, we've got our newer brands like Wow One Day Painting and Shack Shine, which are growing more quickly than 1-800-GOT-JUNK did in its early days. But they're going a bit slow until we're going to get this momentum that goes hockey stick. So
explain to us those other brands. Can you explain real quick, kind of just high level overview, but what those other brands are and like what the model is?
Yeah. So they're all franchise models. So we bring franchise owners in who go, I don't have an idea for where to start a business. I've never done it. And they come in and they follow our proven recipe, and we support them forever. So Wow One Day Painting, 22 years after I started 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I said, we've had great success, would love to get into another business. By almost accident, I was getting my house painted. There was 3 people that came to my door that I'd asked for estimates on. And these people come to my door and I go, oh, the first 2 smell like cigarette smoke. They show up late. They're not clean cut. And I'm like, you know, they're going to move in. It's going to be like Murphy Brown, and they're going to be here forever painting my house.
That's exactly
the third person shows up, and his name's Jim, uniformed, friendly, clean, shiny van outside. And he says, listen, here's how I work. Prices are the same as everyone else. I'm very much at market. Quality, I've done this for 22 years. I know what I'm doing. So does my team. But the kicker, and the third point, which got me excited, is he said, when we agree on painting day, the end of that day, your house will be painted, floor to ceiling, moldings, trim, the whole bit, and you'll be thrilled. And so sure enough, I gave him a chance.
All in one day.
30 p.m.
All in one day. All in one day. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. His company was called One Day Painting. You just said the word wow. So we said, after we bought the company, wow, One Day Painting. The feeling I got when I came home, I walked in the door, and sure enough, it was all done. It was incredible. And there was no compromise in quality. Speed and quality could go together.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, how did you do this? Have you looked at franchising? He said, I've tried to franchise. You can't franchise this business. I said, let's grab a beer. I might be able to help.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I learned that, I mean, you know, we've probably all painted at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
And everyone understands you can paint one room in a day with one person. If it's a big room, you might need 2 people. The whole secret sauce is coordination, preparation and coordination. Have one person in each room, sometimes 2. They're not in each other's way. And it's amazing. So even during this pandemic we're in, our value prop on our business for Wow One Day Painting, and I had no idea this was going to happen, completely exploded. Because when people in sort of May were ready to have people in their homes again, they're like, okay, so if I don't have to be home and you're only there for a day and I can leave, and all your people are wearing masks, they're socially distanced in the house, they get it done in a day. I mean, that just made our value prop go right through the roof. So that business is growing incredibly quickly right now during a pandemic, which completely shocked me. And then the last brand, Shack Shine, windows, gutters, power washing. We make your house shine, right? Shack Shine. And we love what we do. Because it's become a business that adds a level of magic to the home. We do Christmas lights. 25% of our business is Christmas light installations.
Yep.
And so everything it takes to shine the outside of the house, that's the model. And I discovered it by trying to get my gutters cleaned. I couldn't find anyone to do it. Was introduced to someone that was starting a business called Shack Shine. We actually rebranded the look and feel and said, let's do a deal. So, you know, we've now got these 3 amazing brands with young, hungry franchise partners that are coming in that are like, let's start a business together and let's grow this stuff. And we've got over 50 partners in each of those brands, and they'll be bigger than 1-800-GOT-JUNK at some point.
That's fantastic.
That's so cool.
So what's next for you? Like, what is on the horizon? Unless it's intellectual property or confidential, but I mean, what can you share with us about
what's next?
What's coming up?
Yeah. So, my wife doesn't let me call trades businesses in anymore because she worries that I'm going to buy another business and get even busier.
It's a legitimate worry, I think.
It is. What's next? We will have more brands at some point. We're not looking right now because we're just so busy with our own growth that's ahead of us. It's sort of like the analogy of kids. I mean, we've got 3 young kids, maybe one that's kind of growing up into a teenager, but these 2 other young brands, they need our attention and our love. Let's not go out and have another set of twins or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's a busy time, and we want to do it right. This has never been a money-making thing for me in terms of like, I need to get rich so I can buy big boats and fancy cars and homes. Like, this is just love life, grow and have fun with people, and help people accomplish their own dreams. I mean, nothing gets me more energized than watching people live the dream of business ownership for themselves. And that's my purpose.
That's fantastic. What advice would you give to someone that is starting a business and they're worried about money, they're worried about making payroll, they're worried about expanding or scaling? What advice would you give them in terms of keeping their culture good? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, culture is everything. You can't build a brand without the right culture. One of my favorite brands is Starbucks. I've had the good pleasure of meeting Howard Schultz, the founder, several times, and always inspired by his vision and his style. And it's always been about taking care of people. And so as you grow, as quickly or slowly as you do, you can't ever take your eye off of culture. And so it's paying attention to finding the right people and then treating those people right. So we've learned a lot about ourselves as a company during the pandemic, because we've said, wow, it's harder to show care for people when you can't be, with them in the office. And, we've had a few cases of COVID, and I've picked up the phone and called every single one of them. We've had people that were furloughed or laid off when things were scary in the beginning. I called every one of them to check up and see how they're doing and say, I'm sorry. And, so there's different ways to connect. But I think in building a culture, first and foremost, is showing that you truly do care. That first and foremost, this is a people business, not a money-making machine. Yes, you want the money to come. Nobody buys a business or starts a business thinking that they're never going to generate a bunch of money, or that's not the hope and desire. But it's finding a way to take care of the people that are building this with you. And so never take your eye off a culture, ever, ever, ever.
That's great advice. Speaking of that, that's really one of the foundational reasons that we started this, was to pass along knowledge and words of wisdom and inspiration to, startups and to entrepreneurs and, millennials just coming up. And there's 2, I guess, practices or disciplines that you have that I maybe want to see if you could touch on for me. One is going dark, and the other is the 2-second rule. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on those?
Yeah. So the going dark was, I've done it for well over a decade now. I don't remember for how long, but I decided I need to recharge. We all do. I need to have balance in my life, especially as I started having kids. And so my belief was, on summer vacation, Christmas, whatever I was going to take for vacation, long weekends, was I was going to go dark. So no technology. I'm not checking email. Okay. I'm not checking in with the office. I'm not doing Zoom calls. I literally go dark. And so when I started doing this, I found it difficult, where it's like, let me just check a couple of things.
That's here's really, text, really hard.
Facebook. Yeah. So my hack, what worked for me, was I got my assistant to change my passcodes on everything. And I said,
brilliant.
If I can't get in and I don't know those passwords, that's the deal. And it worked. And, my assistant years ago said, well, what do I do if the office burns down? Then I got to call you. I'm like, no, call 911. What am I going to do? Right. Like, right. And so, in all the years when I've gone dark, and all over vacation in the summer, do 4 to 6 weeks at a time, I won't have a clue what's going on with my business, but it's because I have a team and people who I trust, who I empower, and I'm able to go dark. Now, going dark, I wrote an article about it in Wall Street Journal, and I got a bunch of negative feedback from people going, ooh, it must be nice to be king. Brian as the CEO can go dark. And I took the feedback to heart because I was like, oh, I misunderstood. This wasn't just about me going dark. This is about the company going dark. And so we really systematized and put together a process where we said, every person in the company gets 5 weeks paid vacation in our business. We want them to be able to use that and disconnect. We want them to have a partner in their business where we can say, hey, it doesn't matter what role you're in the company, who's your backup so that you can go dark. And we constantly work at it because some people are very addicted to their technology.
That's right.
But yeah, during the pandemic, when it's so easy to be, we're blessed to have a home in the mountains in Whistler. I'm a big skier. The family loves to ski. During the summer, we spent a bunch of time up there in August and took a vacation. And, you can't go travel. Our borders are closed. And so I said, okay, I still need to lead by example and go dark. I actually, during the pandemic, wanted the distraction of work. I wanted to connect a little bit because it's like, what am I going to do at home all day? I mean, yeah, we can go out mountain bike and do stuff, but it was harder for me this year, harder than it's ever been. Still changed the passwords and had to just be disciplined with, no, I need to do this because I need to give other people who are at home a reason to go dark. The second one you talked about was the 2-second rule.
Yes.
Sometimes people can't make decisions. They get really stuck. And I'll just say to them, you got 2 seconds to make a decision. They're like, well, what do you mean? No, I'm like, no, 1, 2, what would you do? And all that is a test to get, what does their gut say they should do? People are often too afraid to say it. And I go, no, literally, you got 2 seconds.
Right.
Is it A or is it B? And you give them the 2 seconds and they go B. It's like, okay, can we live with that? And we don't make all our big decisions that way. But it's a way to sort of pull out from someone. What do you really feel?
Right.
Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Blink. We do have this rapid processing.
I love that book. I love that book. That's what I was just about to say. I said, this sounds like Blink.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, I love that book. That's a great book.
So I've read part of it. I'm a terrible reader, but I've read enough of it to know that you've got this rapid processing of what you hear, see, smell, your senses, your experience in life. And you quickly go, yeah, my gut tells me this. Your gut isn't a spiritual, let's flip a coin. It's literally your mind taking all your experience and going, oh, I trust this guy. I trust this person. Yeah. I believe this is the right direction. I can't put a pin on it, a finger on it and figure out why, but I do. And so make the decision versus getting all paralyzed with analysis paralysis.
Yeah. That's great practice. Well, I appreciate that. And
I want to respect your time too. You had said about 10 minutes till we were going to call it. So we're going to let you go.
I wanted to ask him one last thing though.
Go ahead.
I always like to ask this at the end, and this would be a really cool one. So when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grow up? Or are you still trying to figure it out?
Well, I used to wear these Superman pajamas and a little cape and fly around the house. I think every kid had a dream of being some sort of superhero. But you know what? I feel like I'm living a superhero life. I love what I do. Like, it is each and every day. Now, the pandemic's hard, so I'll be honest and say, there's days where I go, oh man, like, doesn't everybody have a little low-grade depression right now? Like, it's harder. It's not as fun. It's not as easy.
Yep.
But man, I'm living the dream. I love connecting with people and watching people grow. So whatever I wanted to be when I grew up, I'm it. Like, who dreams of being a garbage man? I don't know, but like,
that's so cool. You put it that way. That's right, though, right? That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
I actually
we'll be sure to include links. We'll include links to all the organizations to make sure everybody can easily find you after listening to this podcast. Man, I really appreciate you being on. If I would ask the listeners to please look at these opportunities, look at these organizations for services. Brian's got such a good energy, man. I can just tell you're a good person. You're a cool dude. Awesome. And I think that's a lot of the reason for your success. And I appreciate all the transparency and words of wisdom. I know the listeners will get a whole lot out of this.
Great. Awesome. Brian Scudamore, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I will close by saying, if anyone wants to know how to create a painted picture, connect with me on any of the social mediums and just send me a message saying painted picture, please. I'll fire you off a structure that I created on how to create your own. And thank you to both of you.
Yeah.
It's been awesome to be here, and you guys have great energy yourselves. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Have a good day, buddy.
Thanks, sir. We'll
you
talk
too.
to you.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.